Welcome to Aligned Christ-Centered Yoga. My name is Linda and I'll be guiding our practice today. And my question for you today as you begin is, are you following the path that God has set for you? Our scripture verse today comes from the Proverbs 3, 5-7. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your path. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. I recently had the opportunity to go to a retreat in North Carolina, and on the way I stopped at Wilmington Beach to take a walk. The beaches of North Carolina are wide and beautiful. They are also covered with very small shells. So as you walk, it's hard to pick a path without crunching on the shells. As I was struggling with that, I noticed that there were tire tracks near the dunes. And these tire tracks were wide. They were wider than my body, and they were deep. They were about 6 inches deep. So I went back to the tire tracks to walk, and I found that I could walk much more quickly and more securely. I could also see ahead and know exactly where I was going. I think this is often the path that God sets for us. It's maybe not the most beautiful or the most convenient. It is the path that gets us from point A to point B most safely and most securely. But I think we're often distracted by all the pretty things. And this proverb reminds us not to lean on our own wisdom, not to veer off that path, not to be wise in our own eyes, but to trust that the path that God has for us is the best path. Today's practice will focus on releasing the tight muscles of the lower back and the hips. I invite you to get a blanket or a pillow if you would like one. We'll be moving into Pigeon Pose. So if you're familiar with that and you know that you need a little extra assist under those hips, maybe pause the video and get that now. As you sit, elevate up on one of the blankets, a blanket or one of the blocks, and begin to tilt side to side, front to back, and find that place where the sitting bones nestle most securely. Closing your eyes, just begin to notice the breath. How do you begin today? What is the pace of your breath, the quality of your breath? Begin to breathe a little more deeply, inhaling down the body and exhaling up. Breathe fully into the lungs, the rib cage, the diaphragm muscle. And exhale, drawing the belly in, softening the rib cage, emptying the lungs. How is your body moving with the breath? Closing your eyes, if you're comfortable with that, let the day fade away. Notice the sensations in the body. How does the body feel today? Where might you want to make modifications? Be a little careful. Take 2 more breaths here. Let the hands come out to the side and exhale and begin to find a seated cat, rounding your back, tucking your chin, and a seated cow. And connect breath and movement. So as you come into that cat, exhale. And then inhale and draw into cow, opening up through the heart, raising the chest, finding the back bend. So back and forth here, cat to cow, tilting the hips as well. What do you notice in the hips, in the back? And one more time here. The hands come down. I invite you to come off the block. Taking a nice deep breath in, bring arms up and overhead. Bring the insides of the hands, wrists, forearms together, elbows together, and tucking your chin, draw forward. So forearms on the mat, let the head get heavy and shake your head out in no and yes. And open up across the back. Where do you feel this most intensely? Is it in the outside of the hip, the lower back, or the upper back, or the neck? And adjust to find comfort within the intensity. Gently press into the hands. Go ahead and bring that outside leg to extend the outside leg, the front leg. Turn towards it, exhale forward, inhale back. So hinging at the hip, moving with the breath. Begin to find the hamstring stretch at the back of the thigh. And 2 more breaths here. As you're ready, come forward and settle into that hamstring stretch, bending the knee if you need to, maybe bringing the blanket or the block underneath the knee, and open up across the back. And shake the head out, no and yes. And then gently pressing into the hands, rise up. Bring that leg behind you. Begin to lift and lower this other knee, so the knee that's in the front, and rock over the hips. And just notice, does that leg lift easily? Is it a struggle? How did the glutes feel as you roll over those muscles? And then add the body to it. Drop the head and the shoulders and the rib cage. Often the tightness in the backs and the hips is a product of stress and anxiety and fear. So today, letting all of that go. You're committing to stay on that path that God has for you. It might be a little scary at times. It will definitely be hard. But acknowledging that there's security in it. As you're ready, let that knee come down, the body over the leg. Begin to find your stretch here, maybe flexing both of your feet, lengthening through the spine as the forehead comes down to the hands. One more breath here. As you're ready, press into your hands and rise up. And switch your legs. This leg that you were just leaning over is now going to be the leg that's in front. Find the sitting bones again. Maybe that involves a little bit of rocking back and forth. Nice deep breath in, arms rise. Inside of the hand, wrist forearm together, tucking the chin, come forward. And just go wherever your body most naturally goes and begin to settle into that. Where is the stretch for you on this side? Where are the sensations most intense? Can you use the breath to find release? Take 2 more breaths here. As you're ready, press into your hands and come up. Bring that outside leg, extend the outside leg, turn towards it. Flexing the foot, activating the muscles of the legs. Go ahead and come forward and back. And a few more times here, leading with your breath, finding your own pace. As you're ready, find that hamstring stretch. Extend the body over the leg. Let the head get heavy. Make any small adjustments that you need to make with the hips or the shoulders. And then next inhale, press into the hands and rise up. Bring that leg behind you. Go ahead and lift and lower this front leg. Again, just noticing, does the leg move easily in that joint or does it feel stuck? And then as you're ready, go ahead and drop the head and the shoulders and the rib cage and rise up. Back and forth here. And one more time. And then as you're ready, come over that leg. So you're just going to fold the body over the leg and the head will come down. Find your breath. Breathe deeply, finding length in the spine, release in the hip. One more breath here. And that next inhale, press into the hands and rise up. Go ahead and cross the legs in front, and this time come forward onto hands and knees and meet me in table. And the fingertips are spread wide, knees directly underneath the hips. Smack through the tops of your feet and press into the tops of your feet, taking some of the weight away from the knees. Notice also that if you engage the core muscles, some of the weight comes out of the wrists. From here, find cat and cow. Exhaling cat. Inhaling cow. And 2 more times here. As you're ready, round yourself up, come all the way up to a kneeling mountain, and if you have a block, bring it to one handprint in front of you. So maybe it is on this middle level or maybe high, depending on your mobility. Take a nice deep breath in your kneeling mountain, and as you exhale, heels will come back towards the hip will come back towards the heels. Come into a child's pose with the head on the block. Take a deep breath in, come all the way up. This time, bring the hands behind you, backs of the hands at the small of the back, and as you come back, turn your head so that your cheek is on the block. Again, adjust the block if you need to, move it forward or back, up or down. Deep breath in, rise up. Exhaling, turn your cheek the other way. 2 more times here. Deep breath in. Lead with that exhale as you come down. One more time. Rise up, move that block out of the way. Meet me back in table and check in. Do you notice any difference in the way that the spine is aligned, the curvature of the spine, the sensations of the body? Take one handprint forward, find a kneeling plank. Begin to find the strength in the plank. Engage through the core muscles of the transversus abdominals from hip to hip. And then as the elbows reach towards the ceiling, maybe a little bit towards each other as well, come down to the mat. Find Sphinx pose with those forearms wide and come in and out of Sphinx a few times. Just noticing how the back feels today. And on that next inhale, press into the forearms as you rise into Sphinx and stay there. So engage the pose. Press through the tops of the feet. Feel the quadriceps begin to work. The forearms press down and imagine the elbows pulling back towards the hips as the hips reach a little bit forward. Can the shoulders relax and get heavy and wide? Exhaling, come down, hands to rib cage, come back hips to heels, and twice more through that flow, making it your own. Kneeling plank to the mat, Sphinx to child. As you finish, meet me back in table and stay there for 2 breaths. Again, checking in, noticing. Has anything shifted? Go ahead and turn the right fingertips in, sweep the left arm all the way up and come underneath, threading the needle. And starting with some twisting movement here. How does the back feel as you twist today? One more time, coming in and out of it. And then settle into the shoulders and the head. And I invite you to stack your shoulders, that top shoulder coming on top of the bottom one, and maybe that top arm rises up. Maybe the hand comes to the small of the back, giving you a little more support at the sacrum. Or maybe it wraps all the way around in the bind. And if you're feeling strong today, you want a little more challenge, maybe you extend that top leg, or that right leg, and raise it up and find breath. And as you're ready, release, and that knee comes back to the mat if it's up, and unwind. Draw back child to table once. Finding the same sequence on the other side. This time it's the left fingertips that turn and the right arm that comes up. Exhale underneath. So back and forth here a few times. Connecting with breath, leading with breath. You're inhaling as you rise. And settle into that stretch. And maybe you have that blanket or that pillow today. If the shoulder and the head don't come down to the mat, you can support with that blanket or pillow. Begin to stack the shoulders. Maybe that top arm reaches up. Maybe hand to thigh or hand to, I'm losing my words today, hand to the small of the back. And then wrap around, maybe coming in around the thigh and into that hip crease. And maybe you stay here, or maybe that top leg extends back and rises parallel to the floor. Find a focal point. Draw the belly in and up a little for balance. That heel presses out. And then the leg comes down. Unwind. Child to table once. Bring any props that you have towards the front of the mat. Go ahead and curl those toes under. Knees to rib cage. Meet me in that first downward facing dog. And shake the head out, no and yes. Begin to pedal through your feet. On that next inhale, heels rise. And on that next exhale, heels come down towards the mat. So find your breath here. Taking a deep breath in, the right leg rises high. Draw the gaze forward and bring the foot in between the hands and bring that back knee down and up a few times. And as you're ready, let that knee come down towards the mat, top of the foot to the mat, and walk this front foot out, toe, heel, until the ball of the foot is off the mat, heel is on. Find a lizard pose here. Begin to drop into this back hip. So that left hip dropping towards the mat. And from here, just find your pose. So maybe this is it for you. Maybe you come to the outside of the foot, like a little more stretch in the inner thigh and groin. You can add a twist, that right arm reaching up. Maybe you add the quadricep stretch, and that back heel comes towards the hip. And maybe the hand comes around and the foot presses into the hand, and maybe there's even a back bend in this as well. One more breath wherever you are. And unwind and come out of the pose and gently bring that foot back in, toe, heel, and extend that back leg. Bring the front foot to the back, meet me in plank, and then come down to the mat, however you choose to do it. Maybe you are in 8-point pose or grasshopper pose now and low cobra. Maybe you're still in kneeling plank and sphinx. And as you're ready, exhale into child. And then rise and meet me in downward facing dog. Stay in downward facing dog for a breath, checking in. On the next inhale, the left leg rises high and the gaze comes forward as that foot floats through in between the hands. Let that back knee tap down and up. What's going on in the psoas on this side? As you're ready, gently bring that back knee down, top of the foot to the mat. And this front foot comes out, toe, heel. Wrists underneath the shoulders. Stay here for a breath. And then as you're ready, just gently bring the legs out to that front leg. Bring that foot out to the side if you want a little bit more. Press into the right hand as that left arm rises high. And again, maybe this is where you stay. Maybe that back foot comes up. There's a quadricep stretch as well. Maybe the hand comes to meet the foot. And as the foot presses into hand, hand into foot, finding traction, maybe you find a back bend as well. On that next inhale, unwind from wherever you are. Bring that foot back to center, feet are hip width apart. Raise that back knee up. Go ahead and float that back foot to the front, knees bent. Meet me in forward fold. And shake your head out no and yes. And hands to shins, rise up halfway and exhale down and pushing through the feet, come all the way up. And exhaling, bring hands to the small of the back and find your back bend. And, can you drop the shoulders so that there's length in the neck? And can you draw those elbows towards each other a little bit? Find the back bend. It's going to start right about the base of the rib cage there. And deep breath in, arms rise. Exhaling, forward fold. And hands to shins, rise up halfway and exhale and come back down and meet me in plank and find your flow. And maybe you're where you've been before. Maybe you are in chaturanga and upward facing dog. And find your way back to downward dog, maybe moving through child, maybe going directly there. And when you find downward dog, stay there for a few breaths. And that next inhale, bring that right leg up and gaze comes forward as the foot comes all the way through, and bring that back foot to warrior one and take a deep breath in as you rise. And find warrior one as this back foot is a little wide and angled forward, and this front knee right over the ankle, hips squared towards the front of the mat. Bring the arms out and that right arm underneath the left, and find your eagle arms and forearms away from the face as the shoulders and the elbows drop, and engaging through the abdominals. Maybe you bow forward and rise into that back bend. And 2 more times here. And can you keep the trajectory straight down and up so that you're not veering side to side as you go? How steady, how stable are you? Are you ready? Release, and the arms rise, and exhale as the hands come down to the foot and the back foot comes to the front, and meet me in forward fold. And hands to shins, rise up halfway, and exhaling, come down, and pushing through the feet, come all the way up, mountain pose, hands to heart. And again, finding a back bend. Maybe this time the fingers are interlaced and the backs of the hands are reaching towards the mat, elbows reaching to the wide edges of the mat, and the back bend comes from here. Body rising up and out of the hips. Deep breath in, arms rise. Exhaling, draw the belly in for support, forward fold. Hands to shins, rise up halfway, and exhaling, come down, one leg back and then the other, meet me in plank. And again, from plank, how are you coming through the flow? What's right for you in this moment? Make the practice your own. What is your path? As you're ready, meet me in downward facing dog. Just shake your head out no and yes, and settle here. Check in, noticing the right side of the body, the left, all of the sensations. What do you notice? On the next inhale, the left leg rises high and gaze forward. Bring the foot all the way through the hands. Bring the back foot to the wide edge of the mat and angle it forward and rise up into your warrior one. Hips forward. Arms out to the side. Again, left arm under right. Find eagle arms. If you don't quite have it, you can just extend this right hand across the body. Finding the stretch in the upper back, engaging through the abdominals. Maybe you crunch forward and rise into your back bend. Are you still moving with breath? Exhaling down, inhaling up. One more time. And as you're ready, the arms rise up, shoulders relax. How does warrior one feel? And exhaling, go ahead and bring those hands to either side of the foot. Float the back foot up to the front. Meet me in forward fold. And hands to shins, rise up halfway. Exhale down and come all the way up into mountain. Hands to heart. Find your breath here. And then interlacing the fingers in the opposite direction, the uncomfortable direction, if that's where you are. Go ahead and press the hands down to the mat, the elbows wide. Press down with the feet as the body lifts up and extends, and then find the back bend. Take a deep breath in, arms rise. Exhaling, forward fold. And hands to shins, rise up halfway and exhale down and one leg back and then the other and meet me in plank. And from plank, again, your flow down to the mat, into a back bend, maybe through child. Find your way to downward facing dog. And stay here for a breath. And then come forward into plank, come down to the knees, child to table twice. And I invite you to come back into that pinwheel position where we began today, with that right leg in front of you and that left leg behind. And find 90-degree angles. So go ahead and bring this front shin parallel to the front edge of the mat, and the thigh parallel to the wide edge of the mat, the back shin parallel to the wide edge of the mat. And how does that feel? And are those hips square? What's going on? And let's find a pigeon from here. So let those arms come down in front of the shin. And just notice, how does this feel? Take a couple of breaths here. Maybe this is intense enough for you, and this is where you stay. If you'd like to go into a deeper pigeon, maybe you're using that blanket or that block, and that's going to come underneath that right hip. Go ahead and lift the hips up a little bit. Extend the left leg behind you, that back leg behind you. Maybe the blanket or the pillow comes under the hip. And start wrists underneath shoulders. Maybe just a little bit in front of them, but supported on the hands. Come up to the fingertips. Look over your shoulder. Can you lengthen through the spine? Can you decompress the back as you come forward into your pigeon? And maybe you have blocks and the forehead is supported on a block. So don't worry about whether or not this front shin is still parallel to the front edge of the mat. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What you're looking for is a stretch in the outside of this right hip. And adjust for you. Go ahead and flex that front foot. It helps protect the knee. And as you settle into this pigeon pose, and just thinking about the path that God has for you. And can you let go of anything that is holding you back from following it? Maybe that goes out with the current of the ocean waves. Take 2 more breaths here. As you're ready, press into your hands and rise up. If you have a blanket or a pillow, go ahead and move it out and swing that back leg all the way around into a twist. Sit up tall with your twist. And I invite you to go ahead and twist with your arms high. So it's just a gentle upper body twist. That back arm comes down to support you. That front arm comes across that leg, maybe wrapped around the shin, maybe around the thigh, whatever is best for you. And in order to find another hip stretch in this, take this back hand, thumb to hip crease, massage out that left hip crease and begin to draw that hip a little bit closer to the mat. And with that, can you find a stretch in the hip or the lower back? Or both? And as you find the stretch, let that hand come back to support you. One more breath here. From here, come forward, find your pinwheel again. So this time it is the left leg that's parallel with the front of the mat. The right thigh, this back leg, the right hip is, they're still losing my words. The right shin is parallel with the white edge of the mat. Bringing a blanket over to that opposite hip so that if you want that extra support on the left side, you have it. Stay here in the pinwheel and find this first fold over. Again, just noticing, how does that feel in that left hip? Where else do you feel sensation? Is this enough for you or do you want more? So if you want more, you can extend this other leg behind you. Maybe as you lift your hips, that blanket comes behind that left hip. Flex the front foot, come up to the fingertips, press through the top of that back foot. Go ahead and look behind you, lengthening through the spine. Engaging the abdominals, come forward and find your stretch here. So support the head, either on a block or your fists or your hands. Adjust the pose, flexing that front foot, activating the muscles of the back leg, lengthening through the spine. Find breath, and with breath, find surrender. Letting go of the need to follow your own wisdom, trusting in the wisdom of God. Take 2 more breaths here. As you're ready, press into your hands and come up. Go ahead and raise the hips enough that you can move any support that you have underneath. Bring that back leg all the way around in the twist. Again, arms rise, lengthening through the spine, create space between the vertebrae, and just gently come over to the side, twisting with that upper body twist. That back hand behind you. This front arm wrapped around the leg, maybe across the thigh, maybe wrapped around the shin. What's best for you? And bringing the twist into more of a hip stretch. Maybe this back hand again just presses into that hip crease, massaging out those tight muscles, beginning to draw the hip down and towards the mat. And in that, maybe you find a little bit more of a hip stretch or a back stretch. As you're ready, let the hands come behind. Find breath. One more breath here. Unwind. Bringing the feet in front of you, a block to your hips. Come down onto the mat, onto your back. Go ahead and bring those knees with you and give yourself a hug and rock side to side. And then hands on the knees, just gently circle. And go the other direction. As you're ready, gently draw the knees into the rib cage and away, back and forth here a few times. Bring the feet down and come up into a supported bridge. So the feet are just a little bit in front of the knees. Lift up just enough that this block can come underneath the small of the back. Shoulder blades heavy on the mat. Begin to let the back get heavy on that block. If there's any resistance you have to the path that you know is in front of you, I invite you to let that go now. To exhale it out, to let it flow out of the body and into the block, securely locked away, freeing you of that resistance. Can you feel the body soften? How can the breath provide more release? As you're ready, press into your feet. Lift up just enough that you can move that block out of the way and slowly come down to the mat, one vertebra at a time. Find your breath here. Notice how the back has settled onto the mat. And then one more time, bring those knees in into the rib cage and away, just restoring a more neutral position of the spine. Gently bring the feet down to the mat and extend the legs long. Palms up as they're at your side. Go ahead and adjust the body, maybe windshield wipering, maybe, maybe moving the feet back and forth like a windshield wiper, bouncing the knees, wiggling the hips. Shoulder blades heavy to the mat. Begin to turn the head from the top of one ear up and over to the top of the other, back and forth here. As you're ready, settle into Shavasana. And invite the Holy Spirit to reveal the path in front of you. And maybe it's a 5-year path or a 10-year path, or maybe it's a today path. And as you invite that revelation, embrace the surrender, leaning not into your own wisdom, but trusting Him fully. I invite you to stay here a little longer if you can, but if you need to move on with your day, gently bring movement back, wiggling fingers and toes, rotating wrists and ankles, turning your head side to side. And on that next inhale, bring arms up and overhead and reach those hands behind you as far as you can, and fingers to one wall and toes to the other, and find length. And then bending your knees and taking your time, roll over onto your side and support your head with your arm or a block and find breath. And that next inhale, press into your hands and rise up to a sitting position. Finding your sitting bones, eyes closed if you're comfortable with that. Check in one final time, body, mind, and soul. Remembering where you were when you came to the mat today. Noticing what has changed. Noticing also body, mind, and soul, what has stayed the same. Accepting it as it is. And that next inhale, arms rise up and overhead, palms together, and exhaling, hands to heart, bowing your head, joining me in prayer. Holy God, you alone are wise. You alone know the path in front of us. You alone know the future. So we trust you. And today we surrender in obedience, walking the path that you have set for us. Sometimes easy, sometimes hard, sometimes full of joy, sometimes full of grief. Knowing that everything that you have for us is for a purpose and for our good. It is in your precious name that we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining me today.